WGBR News Talk 1150. Good morning. The time is 8:36, and this is your Friday edition of Newsmakers. I'm Carol Bowden, and I am so glad that you could join us this morning. As promised, we have a guest in the house.
Promised.
Yes, we've told many people about you. I'm talking to Mr. Craig Doubt. Good morning, Craig.
Good morning, Carol. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and I cannot thank you enough for being here this morning. And told you I'm going to read a couple of things that I wrote down here to introduce you and get our morning started. I want to get right into it.
Okay.
So I met Craig Doubt Jr. on February 25th. I learned that night that I will never meet Craig Doubt III. The most unselfish act I've ever witnessed occurred that evening, as a father who will grieve the rest of his life told his story to a dozen convicted felons with the hope that they would stop their violent, criminal behavior and spare another father, another mother, another human being from ever feeling the way Craig Doubt Jr. feels to this day. They called him man. We're talking about your 18-year-old son at that time, just days away from his 19th birthday.
Yeah.
And your son was murdered September 7th, 2008.
He was shot on the 7th, and he was clinically pronounced dead on September 8th. On September 7th, which was a Sunday afternoon, I got a phone call after people searching for me, as it's the opening day of football season. I got a phone call from a manager that I work with at Chevrolet Goldsboro. He actually called a friend of mine that was with me that day, trying to find me, and he handed over the phone to me and told me that he got a call from the Goldsboro Police Department. Some people that knew us, knew me, knew him, said, your son's been shot and it doesn't look good. And I made my way with help from my friend to Greenville, because that's where he was airlifted. And you never want to think the worst that was going on. You want to have hope, but when you get to ICU and the first thing they tell you before you get to see your child is that he's not going to make it, pretty much killed all that hope that you had on the way up there. That's when, my world really started to change. And the next day they pronounced him. So I got to spend all night with him to watch him go.
And on one hand, that was, I guess that was a blessing that you had that time. But no parent should have that time.
No. Me and his mother, Lee Monroe, we got married when we were young. We had our son. Unfortunately, us being young and hard-headed, we didn't last. But we stayed focused, trying to raise him, trying to make sure he did, stayed in school and do the right things. And it didn't always it didn't always happen the way you wanted to. Life's no fairy tale, but he wasn't a bad kid. And I saw a change in him when his son was born that June, that he realized that, maybe some of the things we were saying wasn't just to make his life miserable. And, he's going to work and support a life. Now you get to see what mom and dad had to go through.
So it changes the perspective quickly.
Real quick. And going from that high, to making a funeral arrangements and phone calls and text messages, seeing people wanting to know what's going on and condolences. And I'll backtrack a little bit, people experience loss. The majority of folks, when we get to be about our age, I'll be 46 next week, we've lost folks in our lives. Unfortunately, by this time, when my son died, I lost my mother at the age of she was 50 years old in 2000. I lost a brother. He was 31. He was murdered out in Las Vegas in 2002. And that's painful. Nobody wants to lose a sibling.
Right.
Sudden loss. I experienced sudden loss. I experienced the loss of a parent. And both of those combined didn't hurt me as much as having to bury my son. Having to watch his mother amazingly keep herself together. It is a grief so crushing when you lose a child. It can literally kill you. It could almost killed her. I have pretty much experienced madness, and there's no way out. You close your eyes and you come back right to it, right to that moment. And it takes a while to reconnect to the world. You don't see things the same. You don't handle reality the same because your reality has changed from everybody else. It literally took me meeting people that have lost children to get a perspective on life again. I have had friends tell me over the last few years that it's nice to see you smile again. And, during that time, there was smiles, but superficial.
Right.
My job as a product consultant was very much a people-oriented business, and I didn't want to do my job. I didn't want to be around people because you didn't understand what I was going through. I could speak to his mother. I could speak and understand what, we didn't have to say anything. We just had to be around each other because nobody else knows this feeling. You can't say, I understand how you feel. That it's very trite to say, I understand how you feel when somebody lost a child. And I don't care under what circumstances it is, accident, illness, it's not the same. If you've lost a loved one, a parent, a sibling, a very close friend. I had somebody try to compare losing their dog to losing a child.
You've got to be kidding. It's our inability to cope with grief, I think, but it's still baffles
people trying
me.
to reach out and trying to make you feel better, and there's no feeling better. We find a normal to deal with the world, and it took a while. But a friend last August told me it's nice to see you smile again, and I found a way to deal with it, and a lot of it was dealing with others who are going through the same situation. I found a local group. Actually, they found me, Friends of Compassion, and we meet once a month, and if a member needs help or needs to talk, we keep each other propped up. I've met people on this journey, and that's what I started calling it. I call it a journey. If you're on a road that has no signposts and no map, and it's going to go on forever. And I've met people on this road that's been there for 15 or plus years. 4 mothers started this little group losing their children, and they have kept it together, and people come, people go. But the thing that's constant is that you've lost a child. When I say something to them, I don't get a pitying look. They know exactly how I felt when they speak about how loss affects them. I said, I've experienced that. I know exactly what you're talking about. And that keeps me sane. And I've done chat groups and things of this nature, reaching out to people across this nation who've lost children under similar circumstances, different circumstances. And we all have this one underlying thing that it doesn't stop. It'll never stop. You just hope that you can manage it to a degree. You can mute it down to get through the day. We found that helping others talk about it, giving them an avenue to express themselves, because people run from this type of grief. We've actually had people tell us to get over it.
No.
Get over it. They might say it kindly, but get over it, because people aren't used to being around this type of grief. I heard music.
You did hear music. We've got to take a quick break here. We'll be right back after these messages. We're with Craig Doubt on Newsmakers on WGBR News Talk 1150. WGBR News Talk 1150. Craig and I talking off the air, and I hit the mic buttons a little too quick, but that's okay. Good morning, WGBR News Talk 1150. The time is 8:50, and we are with Craig Doubt Jr. this morning on Newsmakers, and we're sharing his story about Craig Doubt III, his son, his 18-year-old son who was murdered. And as I said earlier, they called him Man.
All right.
I met Craig at the GPAC call-up, and just to give you a quick synopsis of what that is, that's our Goldsboro Police Department and every local, state, federal agency that you can imagine coming together to give convicted felons one more chance before they get put into the federal system. And Craig was the one that stood in front of those convicted felons that night, and he's done it 3 times now, and essentially tried to tell them the ultimate reason as to why they need to get straight.
Well, give them a version of what could happen to them, because that's one of the things that people don't realize. It's not going to happen to me. Bad things happen to other people, or they're the bad thing that's going to happen to other people, and they don't see the cost. and the cost was high for my family. Craig, man, he's not a mama's boy, he was a daddy's man. He was, as I told you, he was trying to turn his life around, and the person who shot him was somebody that he knew. He grew up with. He played ball with in high school. He knew this guy, and they were friends, and then until they weren't. And I've been hearing about this situation for well over a year, but it was, hard words or maybe some fists thrown, but nothing to this level until he actually shot him. I'm still in shock about this situation. I'm still devastated about this. And when I looked at the people at GPAC, I'm trying to explain to you, hopefully that you feel this, that the decision that you make when you pull that trigger cannot be reversed. You're going to make somebody feel the way I feel the way his mother feels. And this is the worst feeling ever. If you're unlucky enough to be shot, your parents are going to feel this way. And it's the worst feeling ever. You literally want to crawl into the coffin with them. A part of you does. And you don't want this on your conscience. You don't want this on your soul. Find a way to change. The world's bigger than what you got yourself into. If you can't make it here, go somewhere else and make a new start. Your ending shouldn't be on either end of that gun. And unfortunately, my son, he'll be 18 forever. The month of September is very hard for me. It's the month I lost my mother. It was the month that he was born, and it's the month that he died in. I really hate September. For the last 5 years, I can't work in September. It's literally impossible for me to really work in September. I don't want any other parent to have to kiss a headstone. I don't want them to have to make funeral arrangements. You want to know what a real party killer is? Go up and ask a parent, do you have life insurance on your child? Something you don't think about, because your child's not going to live. You might have health insurance. I mean, we got the great health insurance debate. You don't want to have life insurance debate, and that's what we're headed to.
Your son was walking away that night.
Yes, he was. His back was turned. He was across the street, and he was shot in the back of his head. It was over 60 feet away.
So even as he tried to do the right thing, the decision from the other person, it wasn't even a decision that he made, because sometimes you can try to justify an action by saying that they made a bad choice. His choice was right. He tried to walk away.
The person who shot him, Monterio Newsom, had a nickname that I found out later during this, when they were looking for him and things of that nature. I knew him as Scoop. His friends closest to him knew him as Shooter, Shoota. Evidently, you don't get that type of nickname unless you plan to do it. And he did the wrong way. He's currently serving some time. He took a plea bargain. He has a maximum sentence of 14 years.
What was he charged with?
Second-degree murder. It was decided when he took a plea bargain that he would be charged with second-degree murder and he would serve no more than 14 years. And that's a whole new, different subject. I'm not...
Well, we will have time to talk about that at a later date, because you're right. The shooter, known as Scoop, 20 years old.
At the time, yeah.
At the time. So by the time he's in his early to mid-30s, he'll be out of the federal prison system if...
Yeah, he'll be out, and he'll be changed. One thing I've realized is that you can't... There's no payback for this. There's really no amount of time you can serve outside of life that's going to satisfy a parent. You can't make me happy. You can't make his mother happy, the people that loved him happy. The closest I've seen was a young man on Buffalo who just got 25 to life for killing a 2-year-old. That's the closest I've seen. He's not even serving 1 year for Craig's age. That's a separate subject. The fact that he's doing some time at all commended. The police department, Goldsboro Police Department, was awesome in this investigation when everything was going on. The DA's office, Mr. Vickery, a great source of comfort, and I appreciated his office's efforts doing what they can with the laws that they have on the books.
Right.
But I realized that day when I saw him when he got sentenced. Me and Craig's mother was there the day he got sentenced, and there's no payback. There is no get back. You just have to, no matter what they give him, we still have to live with the fact that our son is dead. Our son is dead, and his son gets to celebrate his father's birthdays, Father's Days, Christmas at a graveside, releasing balloons in the air. That's how his son is learning who his daddy is. and his mother, Cameron, that's my grandson, Craig's son, his mother, Jaleesa, his grandmother, Lee. The people in his life are doing an amazing job of making that little boy happy. He's the spitting image of Craig, and that's the one thing out of all this. We still have a piece of him. Some people don't get that.
And there's that smile that your friend told you about. Craig Doubt, thank you so very much for sharing
Well, thank you for having
your
me.
story, and I certainly hope that you'll come back and visit with us again.
Anytime.